It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege to interview the Belmont Abbey assistant women's basketball coach, Cameron Sealey. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you. I appreciate it.
Can you talk about your coaching experience and how you got started?
Yeah, so I was playing at Lenior Rhyne University, and probably about a month before graduation, really had no idea what I planned to do. And my college coach, Todd Starkey, who's the head coach at Kent State now in Ohio, he was like, go to the Final Four with us, the coaches convention. And I was like, okay. So I went to the coaches convention with him and the rest of our staff, who were my assistants at the time. And I met Sasha Palmer, and she was the head coach at University of Pittsburgh at Johnstown, and it's a D2 school. And she was like, I'm looking for an assistant, and I sent her my resume. And a week before I walked across the stage at Lenior Rhyne, I accepted the job at Pitt-Johnstown, and really haven't looked back since. Kind of took off running, and I realized I was in the profession that I was supposed to be in.
Can you talk about, of course, taking that job and what it was like?
Yeah, well, obviously with my family, when I told them that I was moving 8 hours away, they all were in shock because I had never been more than an hour away from home. But it was a very good experience for me to get away and kind of get feel the profession from the start. Made about $430 a month. And it's funny, the dorm I lived in after I finished coaching there and I moved on to USC Aiken, I got a text about 2 months later, and it actually, like, they weren't allowing people to live in there because the roof had collapsed. And I was like, good Lord. And it's funny to look back at kind of where I started, and just under the guidance of Sasha and just the people I got to know during that time of being there, and really how it intrigued me to then go get my master's in athletic administration and coaching. And like I said, move on to USC Aiken for a full-time position that obviously was a little bit of a pay raise, and because Sasha took the assistant job at Syracuse. So.
Can you talk about, of course, going to UNC Aiken and what you accomplished there?
Yeah, so when I got there at the season before prior, they were at one point number 3 in the nation, and they lost 2 All-Americans and then 2 transfers to Wingate University, who I ended up coaching against when I was at Lenior Rhyne. And they lost both assistants. And so I went in, and we had a bit of a rough year to start. I mean, if you can imagine losing all those key pieces to a team that was number 3 in the nation. I think we went like 11-18. And we brought in three big, pretty key players, and actually who are 2 of my really good friends now. And we ended up reversing our record to like 18-11. And I think just kind of seeing that improvement through the recruits that we brought in, and just helping Coach Brandt there, I think that was kind of an eye-opening experience for me. And like, oh, okay, like this recruiting process, like it's the key piece to all of this whole profession, really.
Can you talk about, of course, going to Georgia Southern and what that was like?
Yeah, so if you were speaking to a Georgia State person, they'd be mad at you right now because Georgia Southern is Georgia State's rival. And so I worked at Georgia State, and Georgia Southern is about in southern Georgia, obviously, and Georgia State's in downtown Atlanta. And first time living in Atlanta, it was definitely an eye-opening experience. Just my first time being at Division I, and then also kind of navigating through the Atlantic traffic, and then traveling to recruiting like we did. I was gone probably more than I was at my apartment there. And it was cool to work for Coach BT, and I got to know a lot of good mentors there working with the assistants that I did. And just, it really propelled my career, I think, to get to that point at my age. And very appreciative to Coach BT for giving me that opportunity, and just coaching a different style of basketball, which was what I needed at the time.
What was your time like at Wofford coming back towards the North Carolina area?
Oh yeah, that was probably one of my favorite years. As I look back through the journey, just because I was getting back to North Carolina, like you said, where I'm from, and I was about an hour from my family. Really enjoyed working with Coach Garrity, Coach Merrill, and one of my really good friends now, Sierra Simpson. It was just an enjoyable year. We only won like 13 games, but we set a record for the most wins, or tied a record since like in about 15 years. And so it was cool to watch the progression of that culture evolve into what Coach Garrity is doing now at Wofford, in terms of last year being up for in the running for winning the SoCon. And then this year I think he's like 6-3 with most recent wins over rivalry Furman. So that was just a fun time to see kind of the beginning of that process. And now watch those girls that I guess they were freshmen that I recruited, kind of to see what they're doing now.
Can you talk about, of course, taking your first head coach job at your alma mater, Lenior Rhyne, and what you learned as a head coach that will help you as an assistant coach?
Yeah, man, I think it's funny, like, to think back to the process, because I was like the sixth candidate that they interviewed. So they interviewed five people before me, and I didn't even think it was a chance. Everyone's like, "Oh, Cam, like, you better go for it." And I was like, I don't have a shot at that, you know. And I was sitting at my desk one day at Wofford, and I'm preparing to go recruiting in Wofford gear. And I get a call, and it's the people at LR, and they're asking me to if I wanted to come for an interview. And I walked into Coach Garrity's office at Wofford, and I was like, they just called me and asked me to come. And he was like, well, you better get ready. And so I got prepared, and interview went great. Like, it did. And I ended up getting the job about 5 days later. I accepted. And I think being there, it was like a whirlwind, because it was such an exciting moment. But then also the South Atlantic Conference, man, they have some unbelievable coaches in that league. And I think some people probably underestimate it once they first get into the league, about how good the programs are that are in the South Atlantic Conference. And so we built the program like we did. We went from Coach Pate and Coach Starkey did an unbelievable job before I got there. And then I just kind of continued what they had started. And we went 15-14 my first year. Second year, I don't remember exactly. I think we had like 19 wins. We got to the conference tournament semifinals at Furman, which was unbelievable experience. And then the next year we lost a lot of key players, and we're really in a rebuilding process. And I think through that last year there, I really just learned the word balance. I shouldn't say I learned it then. I learned it now from that year. And just what's important in life, and just trusting the right people, and making sure that in this profession you kind of give yourself to other things than just that. Because if you don't have the balance, then it's gonna weigh on you, and it's gonna cause a lot of heartbreak, because you're gonna lose more times than you win, unfortunately, in recruiting. When you add up the recruiting piece, the wins and the losses, the bad practices versus the good practice, like, there's gonna be days that are tough. And so I think I learned since this past year, just balance.
Can you talk about, of course, what you've accomplished so far at Belmont Abbey?
Man, I think I talked a little bit about this earlier, but I've been there for, I guess, since August. And Coach Williams has built such an unbelievable culture there and program. I think I've just tried to add to it and make sure that I could be a mentor for the young ladies in the program, because he's got that thing rolling. I mean, he's like, I think I did it the other day, we're like 63-19 in the last 3 years. And he's just he's a great head coach. And it's funny, we're a lot alike in a lot of ways. I think I might just be a little bit more fiery because I don't know that he ever raises his voice. But he's just he's done some stuff with that school that I think is easy to overlook, but when you're in it, you see how hard they work, those players, on a daily basis, and how much time and effort he puts into making sure they are prepared every single day they step onto the court, and to be not only good basketball players but students. And I've just tried to add to that in whichever way I could. And I think the biggest piece is just having relationships with the girls. And we were talking about it yesterday, and they call me like 7 different things. They call me Cece, they call me Coach Cam, they call me Cameron, they call me Coach Sealey, they call me Cameron, like they call me Cam Bam. Like I never know what I'm gonna get called. And so I think just building the relationships with those girls is probably the thing that I've been able to add to just his culture the most during my couple months there.
Can you talk about, of course, coming to Belmont Abbey, of course, during the COVID season, and what that was like transitioning whenever it's normally a easier transition?
Yeah, I think the hardest part was actually the recruiting piece. I mean, obviously you can't go out and recruit. So a time that me and Coach Williams should be sitting side by side and being like, oh, we like this player, we like her, let's add her to the list. There was none of that. And so you're having to sit in front of a computer and watch film. And we all know that's hard to kind of truly evaluate what a player's emotions are when they come out of the game when you're on film. And having people on campus, making sure you have all the paperwork done that the university or college needs during that time. I think making the phone calls and just building the relationships when you can't really be in person was probably the toughest part. And somehow we've still managed to sign a really good 2021 class during the pandemic. And I think that was probably the toughest part. And then also not being able to go to the office. We work from home a lot, which had its advantages, but also at times you had to navigate through that as well. So,
Can you talk about, of course, what you look for in young female athletes that are playing basketball in high school?
yeah, I think it's funny, but I think this is one way that I've learned throughout I guess this is my 9th year in coaching. The red flags that you can find before they come to you, so you're aware. Not necessarily say no to someone because of those red flags, but be aware of those red flags when it comes to them, their families, and their parents, how their parents react to adversity. I think kind of going to a high school game and really just watching everything is a huge piece. And I think, of course, the hard work is a no-brainer. I think the skill, you got to be able to shoot, because shooting a basketball is one of the one sports you can do without anyone else. You can't throw a baseball without someone throwing it back. You can't be a receiver in football without someone giving it to you. Like, there's very few sports you can do on your own. And basketball is one of those where you can shoot layups on your own. So if you don't have a touch at the rim, or you don't have a jump shot, it kind of worries me a little bit in the recruiting process. And then I think the last thing is just making sure that the players you recruit can communicate. They're not always stuck behind a computer screen. They know how to talk to people, because talking and communicating is how people take things, how they communicate to their teammates, how they communicate with their coaches and professors is going to hold a huge amount of weight when they get to the college campus.
Can you talk about, of course, what the official visit before COVID would look like?
Yeah, so an official visit before COVID is we'd bring probably someone in on a Friday night. We'd invite them to have dinner with our team, and then they would stay the night either with the girls in the dorms and their parents at the hotel, or they could stay at the hotel, whichever they chose and were comfortable with. Saturday, we'd probably have them for a game, so they would come to our shoot around, our team breakfast, come to the game. And then we would let them go with the team that night, let their parents kind of gallivant around Belmont and Charlotte area. And that way they could have time just with the players, so they could ask the questions they need to ask. And then Sunday we'd wake up and probably have a small Bible study, a small breakfast, and send at the hotel and send the recruit on their way. and then but after we met with them as a staff. And so that's what you would like for it to look at, of course, inside that 48-hour window. But obviously right now we haven't had any official visits since COVID has evolved, just due to all the paperwork and restrictions with that.
Does the program at Belmont Abbey allow players to try on their uniforms?
Yeah, we do. And so we'll allow them to try on a uniform, take a picture in it, and then, of course, just give it back. But we try to give them the number that they currently wear in high school and let them try on that jersey, just so they can take a picture, because that's the popular thing to do now.
Can you talk about, of course, coaching in the Conference Carolina and some of the teams that you play in there?
Yeah, so we just got done competing against Spartan in back-to-back games, and Wendy over there, she's built an unbelievable program. She's been there. I don't even know how long. I mean, ever since I've been playing, she's been there. But she just continues to get recruits in there that really just play so well in her system. And she always has good post players, and she builds the guards around them. And I mean, we split with them this past weekend, and so we were predicted number 1 in the preseason, and they were predicted number 2, and so it was a really good, tough head-to-head matchup. And she, like I said, she always builds a good program. We have a manual coming up this weekend with back-to-back games, and they're predicted 3rd in the conference. They actually made it to the NCAA tournament last season, and they have some really good players as well. They kind of spread you out and really want you to defend one-on-one, and that coach does an outstanding job of running a lot of good sets around the people he has. And so another conference like the South Atlantic Conference that has some really good coaches that have been there for a while and built really good cultures. And so look forward to continuing our journey throughout conference play and seeing what we can make happen at the end.
Can you talk about, of course, like every school, of course, COVID does play a big factor in that. What is your program doing to improve, like, being able to play instead of cancel half of their season or forfeit their season?
Yeah, you're right about that. Coach Williams has done a really good job so we kind of split our team into 2 groups, and the good thing is we're deep enough roster wise with talent to be able to do this, but we've kind of split our roster into 2 groups, and we kind of practice in groups. And so that way, let's say in group A, somebody gets COVID, that's only 6 or 7 people that are out, because our other 6 or 7 can still play, and our coaches are involved in practice. And so we'll be in practice. I still get to bring out my skills every once in a while. But we'll be in practice. And so we have to, obviously, as coaches, take a lot of responsibility in being sure that we're making the right decisions outside of practice, because if one of us would get it, that could take everyone out. But we've already had, I think it's 5 that got COVID earlier in the year, and they're in that 90-day window to where they don't have to be tested again, and they can't, as they're saying, I mean, I know there's rules coming out and going, but they can't give or receive and for 90 days. And so those 5 can play in either group. And so we really kind of had to put a lot of puzzle pieces together, think this through, like, okay, this team can practice then, this team can practice now. Okay, these people have already played about 10 minutes together in a game. We can't let them play anymore together. It's a lot of strategic puzzle pieces, I'll tell you that.
What advice would you give upcoming high school athletes looking to play in college?
Oh, man. Find a trainer that knows what it takes to be a college athlete. Find someone who's played. Find someone who's coached in the sport, and really let them build you up. I know it might cost some money. I know it may cost a lot of time, but it would be worth it if that's truly what you want to do. And then I think you're going to face tough times. So, like, you got to make sure you put yourself in an environment that's going to help you really and give you the support you need during those tough times, because being a college athlete is hard. And if you have don't have teammates or don't have the parent support that's going to help you through that, I think it could end up being tough for you to navigate through some of those things. And I think the mental health aspect of student athletes is really something they're talking a lot about right now. And I think it's just because being a student athlete brings up so many emotions in college, and you're away from home for the first time in your life. And so I think the piece of advice is, like, let adversity come, really take it, but also have that support to go back to, and don't always think that it's someone else's fault. I think really just taking it and like living in it, and then also learning from it can be a huge learning lesson that you learn in college that is going to help you later in life.
That's wonderful. What advice would you give upcoming coaches looking to get into the industry?
Oh, put your head down and work. Work. It's going to be a grind. You're going to be tired. You're going to get sleepless nights. You're going to be tired. You're going to not want to do certain things, but just put your head down and do the work. And good things are going out, work out for you. Like socialize, network, talk to people. But at the end of the day, if you do what you're supposed to do at the job you're in, it's going to pay off. You're going to get noticed. And so I think that's the biggest thing is like, don't get caught up in the showy things. Like if you do what you're supposed to do, you'll end up where you want to be.
That's wonderful advice. Where can my listeners find, of course, the Belmont Abbey women's basketball program on social media along with you?
Yeah, so you can follow the women's basketball page on Abbey WBB on Instagram, and then the same thing for Twitter. And then I think we probably put the most social media posts out on Instagram, so that's it seems to be the more popular thing these days. I'm looking it up to be sure. But yeah, Abbey WBB, so ABBEY WBB. And so we try to put some TikToks out there on game days and let you guys know if we win. And then for myself, it's just my name on Instagram is @Cam Sealey. And I try to use my Instagram more so as like personal life stuff, just so that everyone can see I'm not just a coach, but I'm also a person and I have a fiance, I'm a aunt, I'm a daughter, and so kind of get to see my personal life a little bit on there.
That's wonderful. Thank you again, Coach Cameron, for your interview, and best of luck in this upcoming season.
Thank you, Brandon. I really appreciate what you do, and I think just getting people's stories out there is an awesome thing.
Thank you. You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Facebook at Brandon Sports Talk, Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Cameron, for your interview, and best of luck.
Thank you.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.